Welcome back to This Week in Tyranny. While you were watching the Iran war not end, watching the president vanish from public view for 72 hours, and watching tomato prices double because of a war we didn't need, the people running this country were very busy turning the government into a family business. This week, Donald Trump Jr. cashed in on the drone war. The administration made its biggest move yet to rig who gets to vote. Trump hijacked a 60-year-old national parks charity to throw himself a birthday party, and a federal judge finally pulled the plug on his billion-dollar slush fund. Let's get into it. Let's start with the Trump family, because they've figured out how to turn the federal government into their personal portfolio. Here's how it works. The Pentagon just handed $620 million to a tiny rare earth startup called Vulcan Elements. Donald Trump Jr. is an investor in it. According to ProPublica, when the deal was moving through the Pentagon, an official said, and I quote, "The call came from the White House. We have to get this done." When Jr.'s firm bought in, Vulcan was worth about $200 million. After the government showed up with the check, it was worth around $2 billion. That's a tenfold jackpot on a company the administration is feeding contracts to, courtesy of you, the taxpayer. And it's not his only one. Jr. is also an advisor and shareholder in a drone company that's now in line for a piece of the Pentagon's billion-dollar drone program, even as Iran is knocking American drones out of the sky over the Gulf and injuring U.S. personnel at bases in Kuwait this very week. The son is invested in the war. The war is being run by his father. You see the problem. And it's not just Junior. You'll remember Daddy's the one making thousands of stock trades in companies he regulates. Well, this week we learned the one and only consequence he's faced for any of it. A $200 fine for failing to disclose those trades on time, including buying stock in the company that runs the UFC, right before he started promoting a UFC event at the White House. $200! I've gotten bigger parking tickets. Next, and this is the one nobody's talking about because, dumpster fire. They are coming for your vote. Not metaphorically, and not just with Jim Crow-era rollbacks. This week, the United States Postal Service proposed that it would only mail ballots to voters the federal government has on its own list. Here's why that should scare you. There is no national voter list. Elections are run by the states. That's in the Constitution. So building a federal roster of who is allowed to get a ballot would put Washington in charge of deciding who votes, which is exactly the job the founders kept out of Washington's hands. And it's not happening alone. The Supreme Court is sitting on two cases right now. One that would throw out the grace period for mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day, and another brought by Vice President J.D. Vance to blow the lid off how much money parties can funnel straight to their candidates. Stack that on top of April's ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act and let Republicans erase Black and Latino districts across the South, and add it up and you get the project. Make it harder to vote, easier to buy, and rig the map before anyone shows up. They're not trying to win your vote. They're trying to make sure you don't have one. Now, let's talk about the national parks. This one's personal for me because my parents are retired national park rangers. The National Park Foundation is the charity Congress created almost 60 years ago to raise private money for our national parks. 900,000 Americans have donated to it, believing their money goes to the parks. So what did Trump do? He hollowed it out from the inside. He set up his own birthday operation called Freedom 250 inside the foundation, packed the board with his campaign finance director and his campaign co-manager, and started auctioning off access to himself. $1 million gets you a private reception with the president. $5 million gets your corporate logo on the party. And when Congress asked the foundation's president if he'd reveal who's paying, he said, no, I'm going to keep the donors anonymous. Meanwhile, the actual parks have lost more than a quarter of their staff, and the proposed budget cuts park operations by 25%, while routing $10 billion into, quote, beautification projects in Washington, like painting the reflecting pool for Trump's ballroom and his vanity arch that will literally cast a shadow on Arlington National Cemetery. They are bleeding the parks dry to fund a birthday party. That's the whole story of this administration in one sentence. And then there's the slush fund. You've heard me rage about this one before. The $1.8 billion of your money Trump set up to pay people who claim they were wronged by the Biden administration, which in plain English means the January 6 rioters and pro-life stalkers. Here's this week's news. It's dead, at least for now. A federal judge froze the entire fund 11 days after it launched. No money in, no claims processed, no payouts. And it gets better. A second judge reopened Trump's original lawsuit, the fake one he filed against his own IRS to manufacture this fund in the first place, and she's now investigating whether the whole thing was, in her words, a fraud on the court. 35 former federal judges appointed by both parties asked her to look. Trump has to explain himself by June 12th. Turns out you can't sue yourself, settle with yourself, and hand yourself $2 billion without somebody in a robe noticing. Okay, rapid fire. Trump wants his face on a brand new $250 bill, a denomination that doesn't exist, which is illegal because he's a living president. And when the head of the Bureau of Engraving pointed that out, she got reassigned. Putting your face on the money is a thing dictators do, and now we can add it to the list. And Trump said we had to stop making pennies in order to save money. Speaking of the family payroll, the son of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito has been quietly working as a lawyer inside the Treasury Department. No public resume, not on the website, while his dad rules on Trump's cases and doesn't recuse himself. For Trump's 80th birthday, his Pentagon is trying to recruit hundreds of soldiers to show up in uniform to watch cage matches on the White House lawn. But they have to pay their own travel and meet height and weight requirements, because nothing says freedom like conscripting troops as birthday party decor and then making them pay to come to it. In court this week, a DOJ lawyer argued the president can fire anyone for any reason, and when the judge asked if that meant Trump could fire people to build an all-white executive branch, the lawyer wouldn't say no. And a federal judge ordered Trump's name stripped off the Kennedy Center within 2 weeks, prompting a Truth Social meltdown in which Trump blamed the judge's wife, Barack Obama, and E. Jean Carroll, which is a lot of people to blame for a building you don't own and who had nothing to do with the law that said you can't add your fucking name to it. By the way, that ruling came down on JFK's birthday. His family was pretty happy. Well, that's your week in tyranny. Welcome to the golden age.